how accurate this ends up being?
It's very accurate. It's very accurate.
When the kids really try on the map, it's very accurate to
As far as their financial story.
Yeah.
Right, but that's why we've all gotta get on board as far as goal setting and like showing them that it's a worth, like it's worth their while to do their very best.
So currently, since most students, it looks like didn't try.
This data's kinda skewed. Yeah, it's kinda,
The goal is kind of to have like science and social studies help like get on board with goal setting also because.
Well, yeah, we do that.
Both. I mean, for the math though, like goal setting with the math data, so that
When's the next map administration?
in the middle of the year. Hold
Okay,
on, Lanninger's
so-
got a question.
Hand up and everything.
I'm sorry.
This is everything for myself right now.
Just a quick question on the summary. I
Yes,
see where it's got the district norm, or the district level mean.
Okay.
Is the norm grade level mean?
that's
what-
national.
That's what they're expecting?
That's national.
Okay.
So that's like saying, okay, so the national norm, that's just saying like, so I was gonna show you
That's
guys
everything.
kinda how to find like your kids that are like on level based on the map test. That's what we were gonna do, we were gonna group the kids. But I wanna go back to goal setting real quick, we'll talk about that in a
I
minute.
just need a quick question so I
No,
can.
you're fine. But, so yeah, that's why we think it's so important, and we are trying to get like everybody on board, because I know I goal set, and I did it by myself for 133 kids, and it's a lot. Not only that, I did it in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know she goal set with all of her students. How many kids do you have? Not as many.
No.
But she did it. But she did it. So like, what we're saying was like, even if y'all could just, 15 kids, I mean, everybody take, just a certain amount of kids to be able to just sit and goal set with them.
So when you're gonna say goal setting using this, what are you goal setting for? Your
We're goal setting
score?
for,
The
yeah,
next map or what?
the next map score. Because when you see those scores go up, you're gonna see your map scores go up.
Okay.
And they have to do like, they can't, I mean, you can show it in comparison. She did this, and I wish I would have done this, because her map scores came back showing a lot more growth than mine, but she also compared it with their STAR test from last year. She was like, look at where you were with your STAR last year, this is what you scored at the end of the year map last year, where do you wanna be from beginning of the year map this year? And that's kinda how they set their goals. Yes, ma'am?
So just as a reference point, when you goal set for math with your students, how long does that take you in a class?
I typically try to do, I don't always do it just in class, because yes, it is a lot of class time. I actually try not to do it in class, because I don't wanna take class time.
Yeah.
I usually do it, I try to do it before school, after school, and like I said, it's time consuming. It might take you 4 weeks
but per kid, each student
Right.
is like less than 5 minutes.
It's not long at all. Doing for my
Yeah.
entire 133 kids,
Yeah, 'cause
it
we
took
had
me
160 at
it
least.
took me weeks. It took me weeks.
Alright.
But like, you wouldn't do all of your students, right? Because you're gonna be helping ELAR, or you'd be helping math,
But all students.
goal set. So, right, but so we're talking, there's 2 science teachers for 7th grade. How many math teachers for 7th grade? 2? 3? So there's 5 teachers altogether to goal set for math.
So maybe you all can divide.
So you would
it
divide up
and
those
like,
kids.
Say for instance, you have 30 kids. Out of the, well, probably more than 30 because I have my but between the 5 and then possibly myself and the counselors, because that's kind of how they did it last year.
Yeah, the counselors helped.
We all they did it during lunch. They did goal settings up there on the stage. We could do it like that to kind of help offset some of the kids that you have to goal set for. So the more people that you have goal setting, the less.
And when you set goals, will you scroll up for me? When you set goals, you can actually come in here and click on the arrow, and you set the goal in the computer. So that way you're not doing double work. So like if, for instance, say Marty's already goal set with a student, and then for whatever reason, you try to goal set with that same student, you would go in and you'd be like, oh, you've already set your goal, you're good, bye. And so like, it would just, but I think part of the problem is that a lot of these kids have never seen this data, and when we sit them down in front of the computer to take the test, they're just like, oh, here we go again, we're taking another test, click, 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 click.
You can even ask them like, what do you know about math? And they're like, that it's important.
That's
We
all.
don't even know, I mean,
Yeah.
we've never been trained in
I
it.
think
Scroll up.
I think it would benefit showing it's a video that I went to like Beyond Basics for math or whatever, and they showed us how to do all this stuff or how to read the maps, and then they showed us a video, and I think it's a good idea for the video to even be shown to the kids.
Well, we
so
were
they can
wanting
see.
to make a video with our kids,
That'd be cool.
talking like having them like kind of, cause she had her students sit outside. I don't know if y'all seen her map data wall down out in front of her room. Y'all need to go check it out. But she's got her kids put clothespins where they fell on the rip band, and they had like class discussions about it. And they were able to talk about their map data and like what it meant. And so I just think that that's important for the kids to know what it is for them to, because if they're not invested in it, every time they sit down and take the test, they're just gonna click through it. And then when they just click through it, it's just a waste of your time, because you've given up class time for it, and it's a waste of their time.
And because it does correlate like so much with science and social studies with reading and math, because like you said, oh, all of these kids, like 60% of my kids are in the below. That makes sense. So if you see your kids are struggling with like the math that you're doing in science, it'll make a lot more sense whenever you pull up like their math data.
I understand some of it, but like, for example, my pre-AP, since half of them are low.
That's because they probably have never seen this and they literally just clicked through the
Right,
test.
so that tells me probably every student did that, and so none of this.
This data's kind of,
Well, that's like, it's a really good discussion to have with the kids, like, cause some students mastered like their STAR last year, but then whenever we look at
Exactly,
their profile,
yeah.
they're
they're in
down
the
here.
red.
Yeah,
They
that's
were
what I'm
just
saying,
so
like,
surprised, so.
yeah,
But I think when they see it,
so
they.
all of it's accurate.
Okay, so go back to the class report for me. I'm gonna kind of show you for when you do have valid data. What time are we done here?
11:10.
Okay, so when we do have valid data, I kind of want to be able to show you guys what all this means. Scroll up to the top. So this standard deviation number right here can kind of guide you on how you can teach your class or how you should teach your class, right? So that's telling you how wide your spectrum is. If you've got like a bunch of kids up in the high in the blue and a bunch of kids down in the red and a bunch of in the middle, your standard deviation will be really high. So if that's the case, you want to do small group instruction. Okay, so that if you've got a 15 plus standard deviation, you want to try to do as much small group instruction as you can. If you've got a standard deviation that, I forgot the numbers, now I've lost my sheet. If you've got the standard deviation between, not 15 plus, 14 plus, you want to do small group. If you've got a standard deviation between 1 and 10, that's when you can direct more to a large group based instruction, and anything in between would be at your teacher's discretion because you know those kids best. But that's how you can use that, the standard deviation. And then again, he was asking over here about the mean RIT. You got your mean RIT, that first one is for the class. And then you've got the district grade level mean RIT, that's for our district. And then the norm, 217, we're looking at it's gonna be different for every grade level because every grade level's, on norm is different. But for us, it's 217. So that, if you add or subtract 3, I need like I can't use that thing over there. Much time to do it. Okay, well, but if you were to add or subtract 3 points from that, those kids are gonna fall in your on-level group. So if you look at that first roster that I've given you, it looks like this, it's got your kids' names. The very first roster. Keep going, there's 3 pages there, there's several pages, that roster right there. So that's your math roster, and it's got them from greatest RIT level at the bottom to least at the top. So from here, this is how I group my kids, and I go through with a highlighter and I highlight them. So if you've got anybody who's 90 percentile or higher, they would be considered GT.
Where's the percentile?
It's gonna
I see
be,
it, I see it.
you see the percentile?
Yes.
So and it's gonna be the one that's highlighted, bold.
90 or higher?
90 or higher would be considered GT, that would be your purple group. Okay, I don't have any purples on mine, I don't ever have any purples on mine. That's not saying that they're not out there, because I'm sure they are. And then if you've got anybody with 20 percentile or less, those are gonna be your at-risk students. And I know you've got markers in here, I don't know if y'all wanna mark on you can mark all over these papers. But so 20 percentile or less would be at risk.
And like when they take the data, when they take the test seriously, like it's accurate. Like that's about how many students you have there. I don't know,
yeah, so
31
like-
kids.
Right,
That's right.
so these are the kids that she's got that are at risk right here, cause
What
she
was the
checked
number for?
20%, 20 percentile, sorry.
I got you.
20 percentile are your at-risk kids, 90 percentile and above are your GT kids. And like I said, I like do this every time I take my test, I pull this report and I group my kids real quick. I just find these numbers. Okay, so then to find the kids that are in the green, which would be your on-level kids, you look for the national norm RIT which for sixth grade for math, it was 217. And you do plus or minus 3 points. So for us, like I said, it was 217, so we would go from 214 to
This kid right here.
to that kid. So then all these kids right here would be on level, in McCormick's class, according to her data. And her data is accurate because they goal set and she made her kids test several times. If they didn't take, I mean, we had kids who would come and test in 30 minutes and we're like, no, you're taking it again. Like, there's no way you've read all
After
those
goal setting-
passages.
After goal setting, that only happened with like 2 kids, because they wanted to know actually like
What their scores were.
where they were, yeah.
Okay, so the on levels plus or minus 3 from the RIT. And then anything that's in between the 20 percentile and the, on the grade level is gonna be your below grade level, which they're not quite at risk yet, like you could probably get them there. And then, anything in between above, wait, how do we get above? Oh, anything between grade level and GT would be slightly above grade level, but not quite to GT yet. So for here, for these, it would be, which ones are these, above grade level? No, below grade level. So she highlighted in between her at-risk students and her on grade level students, and these are the ones that are like sitting there straight in the middle.
So what was the percentile for on grade level?
On grade level is plus or minus 3 points of the national RIT.
So you have to look back at that norm paper.
Okay.
If you look back at the front page that came on that one, or you can look at that one too. So seventh grade math,
Well, 8th grade.
sorry, eighth grade math, 226 is the, so you would do plus or minus 226.
So only 3 are at grade level.
According to this data that
Right.
is skewed because they didn't take the test seriously. But McCormick and I too, we're also, I mean, we're supposed to be talking about like doing some goal setting. We're also willing to help once we get into that goal setting process. If y'all need help, like, if y'all wanna see how it goes down, what kind of conversations are being had, we're willing to
Like
come
come up
help
and
you
make it,
guys.
like, help you with your class, like during our conference time. So instead of just you watching us goal set, like we can actually.
We can actually sit down and
with
goal
you
set with your
and
kids.
students, yeah.
So we're here, if y'all have any more questions about Matt,
Could we call Jason?
So should we get our last year's reading scores? Would that be?
last year's star reading? Yeah, you can look at,
Or map.
no, not last year's map, not, I wouldn't look at last year's map, because we've already got beginning of the year map. I wouldn't even
Oh,
look,
you've already got the beginning of the year.
yes, we've already got beginning, so you can use that, but I would definitely take last year's reading star and make a comparison to this year's beginning of the year reading map.
So what do you,
because-
how are you goal setting with the kids that did not, for some reason, did not do their math test at the beginning of this year?
I set their goal at the standard, at the mean.
Okay.
So like ours was 217, I said, you've never taken it, I don't have any data on you, that's your goal,
Well,
217.
if they've never taken it, but if they've taken it previously, just
You've
not
got-
this year, then you'll just set based off their other scores.
Right, thank you.
Their most recent score.
So are you also setting goals for each SEA?
Use everybody.
Yes,
Okay, so if you don't do math like we don't, I can see setting a goal, I mean, for their next reading map, but then what are we doing in the meantime?
You're
Basing
still
it off-
setting goals for SEAs. You're still setting goals for SEAs. We don't want you to stop setting goals for
Yeah.
SEAs. We just need help. We're trying to get our ELAR and our math people help so that we can all get all these kids goals set.
well
Yeah.
then, so that we can all use the data, cause right now.
Exactly, and so we can actually use the data for what it's intended for.
Then you'll be able to actually use the reading and math data to guide your instruction in science.
Exactly. That's the goal.
So where should they be seeing this data right here? What classes should they be seeing this in?
All of ours,
All of the classes.
every class.
They need to see that, they need to see that math, science, social studies, and reading are invested in this. Cause if they just see it for math and reading,
Let's just say, for example, if math on our floor isn't goal setting, which I'm not saying they're not, I'm just using an example, then what really good is it for us except for science? Cause they're the ones that are doing this, right? Does that make sense?
but the goal is to have everybody goal set together, so you wouldn't be goal setting without math.
So I should be sitting with another discipline and goal setting with a kid, with someone from another discipline together?
Well, you don't have to sit with them because the results are in here, but, so that's why like if
what you were saying, if
If
you've
we
already
pair-
done it and you look in there to that same kid that you have and they've
Okay,
already done
cool,
it,
you already goal set, bye, sayonara, see you later.
okay,
They'll have a little.
They'll already have their
dot
goal
right
set.
there.
okay.
That dot is the goal, and then it'll tell you that it
So
was the
divide and
fall
conquer.
So
28
you,
goal.
you put something in there,
Right,
it
yeah.
tells them what their next goal is, I think to do that.
Yeah,
So
we
right
can have
here,
divide and conquer.
for RIT scores, you would do,
I'm gonna go back, I was
Okay.
showing where to click.
so once you get into the student profile, you click on that little arrow that she had over there. And then right here
Well,
for your
stuff's
RIT
sitting on my
scores, you
table,
do
too.
goal,
It's already
goal,
ready
RIT
to
score,
go.
and you can manipulate that all you want.
Okay.
And then you set it.
And then you set it, and then it'll tell you, it'll pull it up, and it'll come up right here, go set goal for winter, there's not one set, because we haven't started
adapted
setting
the-
goals with
the
our
guided
kids yet,
notes
Okay.
which we probably
policy
should,
this year
because
for the kids.
we want,
because they
the
were
object is to
being
set the
able to read and
goals
write at the same
sooner
time
than
we're
later.
taking
Right?
That way the
Look
kids
at
can
some
have
of
an
these
action plan and then
scores,
work
some of
towards
those
that
kids are
goal.
like first grade.
Mhm.
Is that not